Hello, this is Miss Holden again, and today we're going to continue on with looking at our primary sources. This has been a big push that we want to continue to do with you as we move throughout the remaining part of the year. As we move throughout the remaining part of the year, we want to, as we look at the topics, the big takeaway that all of your teachers would like for you to have is how to answer and to analyze sources. Because once you have mastered those skills, you're going to be able to determine outcomes and biases and evaluate and form your own opinion on topics. So we're going to start off, we're going to be looking at three different documents for today. The first one is this document, which deals with the Progressive Party. So during the Progressive era, there became a party, just like we have Democrats and Republicans nowadays, called the Progressive Party. And the goal of the Progressive Party was they looked at all the things that we've been discussing this last few weeks with the Progressive era and seeing all the problems that were existing within society and with people. And their goal was to form a party, and their whole platform and their base was to try to change these negative things that were happening in the party. So, what you're first going to start off by doing is to read the document here. And then you are going to answer the questions that follow along with it. A good topic, remember, or structure and way to analyze, make sure that you are close reading the document. So make sure you are using those things, highlighting the things that you find important, maybe putting question marks or adding comments into the document off to the side to make sure that you are truly diving deep into the document and just not breezing over it to read. The second document that you are going to look at is this document dealing with tenements. Now, tenements were large scale apartment buildings in urban areas, but prior to this point, there were no laws on how this needed to be formed. So you could have 20 people in a single apartment building, you could have it have no windows, you could have it have no bathrooms, you could have, there was no laws or things that apartment owners needed to follow in order to allow people to live within their building. So you have a lot of poor people living in these tenements. There becomes a man by the name of Jacob Riis. He goes along as a muckraker also. We already talked about Upton Sinclair prior. Jacob Riis does the same thing that Upton Sinclair did for the meatpacking industry, but he did it for particularly the urban poor. So he writes a book entitled How the Other Half Lives. And in this book, he describes and he takes a ton of pictures that shows how the poor were living in the urban areas, particularly in New York City. And he gets that book published, and many rich people of the time read the book, and they couldn't believe the awful conditions that poor, particularly in New York City, were facing and enduring. So, what they ended up doing was establishing laws that made it so apartment owners and these tenement owners had to have certain laws of what they needed to be followed. So things like they had to have windows in the apartment. They had to have indoor plumbing. They had to have a fire escape. So if there was a fire, people would have a way to get out. Our final document that we're going to look at, remember, you're going to need to keep on scrolling down for the third document. The third document is going to deal with John Muir. And John Muir was an environmentalist. He was particularly involved with deforestation and this idea that we should not be just cutting down and destroying the natural landscape that was happening as people moved westward. Remember, in our previous units dealing with westward expansion, as people moved west, they wanted to be able to spread out. That was a great thing for our economy and industry. But when people started to spread out, what's the first thing they do? They oftentimes will clear the land and cut down trees. John Muir gains a lot of momentum, and he is one of the main people behind this idea of establishing national parks and why we have national parks today that is land set aside that cannot be built on. It's owned by the government for all of us to enjoy. And I bet a bunch of you maybe have been visiting, maybe not national parks, but um, wildlife areas right now during COVID-19 in order to get out and to get some fresh air. And we can thank that to people like John Muir who petitioned for that to happen. So what you need to do, make sure that you are making a copy of this document. You are answering the questions and then submitting it through Canvas. Hope everyone is doing well. We miss you whole bunches. Bye.